I'm Cebe, and I just wanted to preclude my presentation real quick by saying thank you. I've received a ton of help and support on this project from Professor Paul, putting up with me all semester, my classmates, Gene Crowther, John Cock, and Tony Salomone with Alta, Blake Sanders, and many more. So thank y'all. Oh, and my family for putting up with me. I'll get started. As you all know, the car is America's primary means of transportation. As you also know, cars are large. They take up a lot of space, both to park as well as to move quickly and efficiently. In order to get space to do this, we have to either take it by developing roads in our existing towns, or sprawling out in undeveloped areas and creating new development. Unfortunately, this pattern of growth and development in our cities has many disadvantages. One, it's economically unviable for fulfilling our short distance transportation needs, both in terms of personal expenses as well as underlying infrastructural costs. And two, it is oftentimes not as efficient as other means such as walking, biking, or busing from getting to point A to point B. And I'm going to show a quick video here. Hopefully that works. This is actually me biking to class, door to door, mile and a half. It takes 11 minutes for me to get to class. Watch this Escalade blow by me over here on 123. And as I get up to downtown, you'll notice that same Escalade managed to pass it. And also, I wanted to use this video to show show how little space there is dedicated in downtown Clemson for bikers. Look at me squeezing in between these cars. Somebody was to open the door, I'd be do a little head flip. So, but just to reiterate my point, parking services defines reasonably convenient parking on campus as within a 20-25 minute walk of one's destination. Within that same time, you can bike 3.8 miles, the same distance from Pendleton to Bowman Field, or all the way from University Village Apartments to Bowman Field. And probably the most detrimental consequence of auto-oriented growth is it takes our towns and cities and turns them from places that used to look like this, oriented around the pedestrian, to places that look like this, places that are oriented around cars. And so at Clemson, we're kind of at a crossroads. We have a choice. We can either keep developing for cars, or we can start developing for people. I propose that we switch gears in Clemson. In order to do this, we need to develop a plan that increases the use of alternative transportation. But it's not really about just increasing bike and pedestrian and bus use, but it's just about allowing equal opportunity for all means of transportation, including cars. And so in order to do this, I started out with analysis, looking at existing conditions in Clemson for bikers and pedestrians, traffic patterns, recreational facilities, looked at population data where the biggest concentrations of students and people were living in Clemson, so I could understand where people would be coming from. Looked at the bus system, and also looked at slope in Clemson. A lot of people think Clemson is too hilly for biking, but as you'll see later, I was able to manipulate slope so that it's actually fairly manageable. And so I looked at several case studies, but the one I really looked at most closely was Ithaca, New York, because of its several similarities to Clemson in terms of size, in terms of population and area, and it's the home of Cornell University, just like Clemson's the home of Clemson. It also has a fair amount of slope as well. And I looked mainly at traffic patterns in Ithaca. It has a lot of major arterials coming through the town, but it also has an extremely well-connected bus system. I think it's won several awards up in the Northeast, as well as an extremely well-connected bike system. This bike system's comprised of bike lanes, sharrows or shared lane markings, and signed bike routes, as well as multi-use trails and greenways. And you'll see how putting all these things together, you come up with a very well-connected hierarchy of transportation types, where all of the bike and the bus routes are located off the main auto lines, providing safe routes for bikers and pedestrians. And at the heart of all this is a pedestrian core, Ithaca Commons, which is on the first slide of this Ithaca series, which is a pedestrianized shopping street. It's highly successful. It was closed off to auto traffic back in the 70s. And then looking at Clemson at the same scale, you can see how all of our existing bike and bus infrastructure relies on these major arterials with the cars. So essentially, you're having to bike and walk to get anywhere along highways. In Ithaca as well, there's a well-connected, or there's an extensive bike parking network. And not just bike parking at the public libraries, places people want to go. Clothing stores, I mean, people want to go to the library, but other places as well. Shopping destinations, Home Depot, the grocery store, and even Walmart. And then looking at Cornell's campus, I thought this was pretty interesting. They designate bike routes, but in addition, they also designate places where bikers aren't allowed. And this is for pedestrian safety, to reduce pedestrian bicyclist conflict, dismount zones. I did a survey of students and faculty to try and understand a lot of perceptions about existing conditions of alternative transportation modes in Clemson. As you can see, most people don't use alternative transportation on a daily basis. And most people, the average was about, they thought the level of service of alternative transportation was fair. And this was a pretty, I managed to get over 300 results, 300 entrants for the survey, so I feel like it's a pretty good showing of what the general consensus is. I asked why people weren't currently using alternative transportation, and then what conditions would make people more apt to use alternative transportation, and then started to look at what kind of design measures could be taken from these considerations. And then, this gave me a clear idea of the different types of users that would be using alternative transportation, so I can design a system that accommodates a wide variety of users. And maybe most importantly, I asked what destinations people would like to reach by alternative transportation, bike, walking, and busing. And it gave me a good idea of where people want to go. So I started to conceptualize, and taking a cue from Ithaca, I wanted to create a bike and pedestrian heart for Clemson around the campus and the downtown. And walking and biking would be the preferred means, as most supported means of transportation in this zone. And this would entail us growing our existing trails and greenways network, bike and pedestrian routes, on-road routes and greenways in green, routes in orange, from one that looks like this to one that looks like this. As well as integrating automated bike share, I looked at that origin, where people were living, and destination data from the survey to try and gauge where would be appropriate places to put these stations. But essentially, you have a card, an account, like a Tiger Stripe. You go up, you put your Tiger Stripe in, you take a bike, and you go to wherever your destination is. and deposit your bike at another station nearby. And so it's basically public bike transportation. And this is what the network looks like with those bike share stations integrated. And I also wanted, as I said earlier, to make it so that all user types have access to the system and produce a variety of different routes. Green routes, which would be primarily off-road, such as greenways, would be the least sloped and the lowest speed. Consequently, they'd be the slowest, but they'd be great for children, for families, for people trying to hone their bike skills, and people who just didn't feel comfortable riding or walking alongside busy streets. Blue routes would be a little bit more integrated into existing streets with design measures taken to enhance safety. And black routes would be the most direct and the quickest, but you'd be the most in contact with high-speed traffic. But even here, there are design measures that can be taken to improve existing facilities. And looking at it from this standpoint, this is what the network looks like. And as you can see, you can essentially reach anywhere you'd like to go in Clemson by either a quick, difficult route or a slow, easy route. And then to support my point that slope can be manipulated in Clemson, I did some slope elevation studies of those easy trails and found there to be a 3% average slope along those routes, with only 18% in one or two places along those routes. So very, very manageable. And then started looking at design measures that can be taken to accommodate all users equally. This is College Avenue around the post office. Some of the measures I looked at were lane reductions, lane width reductions as far as vehicular lanes, adding landscaping and planting buffers to enhance pedestrian comfort and safety, adding buffers along bike lanes, and adding bike lanes where there aren't currently to add bicyclist comfort and safety. And all these things help to provide equal opportunity for all means of transportation along our streets. And looking at some other streets around campus, this is 76 around Timber Place Apartments. And this is 93 at Bilo, adding landscaping there to help slow traffic as well. There are currently bike lanes along 93, but if anybody's used them, they know, they might as well not be there. It's so scary. But I wanted to focus on campus as well. And I took three major design measures around campus. One, again, looking at Ithaca and Cornell, dedicated several multi-use paths on campus for bike transportation with the idea and the intention that all other paths would be restricted to pedestrians only, and bikers would be required to dismount in those zones for pedestrian safety. In addition, I'm proposing closing off this section of road to only buses, and hydraulic remote control bollards would allow buses to pass through, and they would raise up when they got through. This has been done on other campuses across the country, including UC Davis, and it has just been, with great success. It would improve the pedestrian bicycling environment on campus and would discourage people from driving to campus. And then also several roads around campus serve as a barrier to getting to a campus. So looked at the redesign as I did the other roads earlier. This is perimeter. And this is perimeter around the botanical gardens, widening the shoulder there so people can actually bike to the botanical gardens and not feel like they're going to get run off the road, and reducing the speed limit. I also focused on downtown. First off, looking at adding space for bikers within the downtown by using these shared lane markings. And these just let vehicles know that this is a space for bikers, to expect bikers in this zone. And it helps to slow down traffic in this highly pedestrianized and bicycle zone. I also looked at circulation improvements, though, to improve vehicular circulation downtown as well. Currently, these one-way streets are going out of College Avenue downtown. I propose reversing their directions so they're facing in. And what this would do would reduce the number of conflicts, people turning into side streets downtown, improving the overall circulation through downtown. And you wouldn't even have to reverse the diagonal parking. You would just convert it to reverse angle parking. So a very easy fix with a commuter center in the old planning building downtown. And then buses would be the bridge to getting to the pedestrian core from the outskirts of Clemson, people arriving by car and people living on the outskirts of Clemson. And I would do this by tweaking a few things with the routing, but my biggest proposal here is parking ride stations in underutilized or underused areas around Clemson. And these parking ride stations would serve as a bridge for many means of transportation. Walking, biking, bike share, driving, and riding the bus. And I wanted to look at developing one of these further to see how it might work. This is along 123. This is an old strip mall development and a dead parking lot that's right next to it. And this is the area that we're going to be looking at here in a second. And redeveloping this into a parking ride station where people coming from outside of Clemson, either for class, for work, for games, can park their car here, either hop on the bus, or grab a bike share bike, or grab their stored bike, and hop on the Greenway, or hop through Abernathy Park into Clemson. And this is showing the different access. Oh, as well as providing under the railroad access to the neighborhoods behind the railroad tracks. And this is just another example of perspective what this might look like. And these would also be areas where we could provide visitor information and route maps about the trail and route system in Clemson. And this is looking at the crossing over to Abernathy Park, which would then route into downtown Clemson, providing a route completely off-road from 123 to downtown Clemson. And then outside of the busing zone, if you will, we would still primarily travel long distances by car transportation, unless you'd like to use the Amtrak or other means. But cars are most suited for long distance transportation anyway, and so I felt they were most appropriate in this zone. So putting all these things together comes up with a system that is much better connected, I feel, for suiting multiple means of transportation in Clemson, and is just better for people and better for living. And I want to end real quick with another quick video. This is a little bit nicer of a ride. This is the first morning I was documenting my rides into class, and I happened to, as soon as I got up to 123, this guy, Neil, pulled up beside me, and it was, real atypical traffic. There were hardly any cars on the road, cool, crisp morning, and we just biked side by side and talked about biking conditions all the way into campus. It was really cool, and it really kind of, helped me gain a glimpse of what Clemson could be like if they were to implement something like this. And there's Tillman Hall. I mean, it was just beautiful. So, all right, thank you. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
connection all the way out to the Clemson Experimental Forest where people do a lot of mountain biking, some trails out there?
Yeah, I did propose, and it's hard for me to remember off the top of my head, but I did propose, I think a side path, yeah, all the way up. Because that bridge is there, you have 10-foot shoulders on either side of that bridge, and if there was, a way to get to that bridge, there's already that infrastructure there to get to the forest. And I've actually biked out there several times, and it's a great ride when traffic is easy. So.
Yeah, and with just a spur trail, you can connect to the middle school, and you're going right
Sure.
past the high school, so you could connect those students to downtown and
Yeah.
all the other areas that you designed. So, and that's a great connection.
Yeah.
The 7 miles of trail, you can really lots of parks and different user groups could use that system.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to celebrate the fact that you're still alive, Jack.
Yeah. Well, luckily people look out for me when I got a giant camera on my helmet, so I'm a little bit more identifiable then.
How big a park and ride is that actually?
In terms of,
In terms of numbers of cars and that kind of thing?
I calculated out, I think that, just this one that I designed, I think has 16 bike share bikes, or spaces for 16 bike share bikes, parking for 60 cars, and bicycle lockers for 30 bikes, just in that old parking lot on 123.
I think that's good.
Yeah, it goes without saying, really,
Thanks.
experience. I think that's how I speak for everybody. Quite impressive. I'm wondering if you shared this with Cheryl Vanderman, who is our campus master planner. You know Cheryl? Have you shared?
No, I've been working with, and I forgot to leave her out in thank yous, but Tanya De Olivier.
Who's working with him?
Right,
Yeah.
right, and she helped me out with this too. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You ought to share it with Cheryl, who is, I know would be very interested in some of the campus, in terms of Clemson Campus University.
Mhm.
And one of the things that, in the short time I've been here, that I've advocated for, I don't mean this to be a self-serving statement, I think it's something we really need, is a student-run bike repair shop. Then I heard a week or so ago, we've got one. It's in that barn facility, is that true?
Mhm.
Is that up and running?
Yeah, I think they do like a self-repair session like every second Thursday of every month or something.
It's really important, this type of program, isn't it, to have something like that. I've got, bear with me with some quick, very short answer questions.
Sure.
How do you control the speeds in your slow speed areas? How do you control speeds?
Well,
For the cyclists.
right. Like along the roads?
No, where you have the green, I think you have the green lanes that were for the slow speeds for cyclists.
Those are primarily greenway routes. So those are off road. How do you control the bike speed?
Cyclist speed, yeah, how do
I
you
see.
keep people, how
That's
are people doing that?
that's an issue. People are. I think one of the there are a lot of experimental measures going on with that, but providing markings like you would a vehicular road. That helps slow down. Winding the paths slows down your speed, because if you're anticipating a curve, you're going to slow down naturally. So, but I didn't really get into that much depth when I was planning this out. So
I'm curious about that, and related to that is the really important topic of what I call cycling etiquette. In your research, have you come across any programs that teach people who want to cycle what is proper etiquette for passing people, when you can speed up, when you can slow down, those types of things? Because there are a lot of breaches of what I would call cycling etiquette.
Yeah.
That can be very dangerous.
Yeah.
Did you come across any of that?
yeah, well, it's there are a lot of educational programs, and I think the biggest recommendation is that you start. The younger you start, the better. Over in Europe, they start when they're in primary school, and they have bicycling rodeos where they teach bicycle safety and how to act when you're biking on the road. But I feel like the biggest issue with biking right now is if there's no defined space and defined way to act on the roads for bikes, then bikers are fairly, feel like they don't feel the responsibility to act, according to vehicles. They kind of, go in and out of being a vehicle at some point and being a pedestrian riding on sidewalk at some point. 'Cause there's no, what's the word, where there's no, I guess, enforcement of, or no rules set out, through design for how to operate bikes. So,
Yeah.
does that answer your question?
It does. Something needs to be done. I mean, I'm not suggesting that people need to get licensed, but people have to somewhere along the line learn what are proper ways of biking. And I guess if you have more adults biking, you can teach their children, as you're saying.
Yeah.
And that type of thing. But then you have to figure out where the adults get it.
Yeah.
And you really, implicit in a lot of your work is traffic calming, right? You didn't use the term of art, traffic calming, but that's what you're talking about, which is very important. Along College Avenue, for example, you have some traffic calming, not just you had the example of Davis. Now, I can't help but think of observations that Mary Beth was making about Colesburg, introducing some public art, or along College Avenue. Some communities have very wonderful public arts programs, and I've just sort of noticed anecdotally that those are traffic calming. And so something of that nature might help, just be another dimension to what you're trying to do to make it safer for cyclists. I'm wondering also about the cab buses. I don't know if they have bike racks on them. Do they have bike racks
Yep.
on them? Good. Good. And then, lastly, I'm curious about other case studies that you came across. We have, maybe you touched a little bit on what they do during the winter, and those very harsh winters. But then I'm wondering what other places you look at that you would say that these are communities that people interested in cycling want to learn about. They have effective programs. Where else do you go?
As far as college campuses or just
Not
places
necessarily.
in general?
Davis, California is
Yeah.
probably one of the best.
Yeah. One that I was playing around with for a while is Peachtree City, Georgia, where they have a extensive greenway network that is actually for golf carts. And everybody gets around by golf carts. And it's, it's hugely popular. You looked at it as an outsider if you don't have a golf cart. That was a pretty interesting one. I'm trying to think back. I did so many. Boulder, Boulder was another one. Yeah, that was Madison, the capital of Madison. Yeah.
Check.
I want to commend you for really looking at the big picture of this region, but really getting down to the detail too. Your sections through all these really critical roads where you're looking at very precise measurements, looking at details like how wide the shoulders are, and then doing detailed designs of those was superb. And that's what it takes to really get something like this to work is getting down to that detail level. So you did a really good job going from the big picture down to the detail of making it work. And your title is delightful.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, and also with those sections, all those new road designs are within the existing right of way. And so if the city were to, or SCDOT were to try and implement something like this, they wouldn't have to buy any adjacent land to do it. So
That's big.
yeah, that's a real big part of it.
I agree with everything everybody said. I think it's come a long way. The last time we were talking about taking vehicular traffic out of downtown and all this stuff.
I think you should. I think you should.
Anyway, I think the interesting part is these strategic locations for these bus stops. And what might be interesting to think about those is how they could become areas for redevelopment. Where you can increase these old shopping centers that are really, like that shopping center probably 75% vacant. So they can have a new life as something new. And so you can have a density of people living there that then can easily have public transportation. So again, I think embedded in this is another layer of suggesting a different kind of development model.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, or yeah, with a nice student.
Zach, if you could implement something tomorrow, where would you start?
Where are we gonna start? And I was thinking about this earlier, if this question were to come up. I think, you know, the biggest areas right now focus are around that core, you know, central campus. But at least, you know, just the area around campus and getting to campus. Those are the biggest barriers, you know, coming down College Avenue, coming down 93, and then, you know, within downtown as well. But and we have all these trails that are existing around Clemson, but they're just disconnected. And if there were to be a network of recreation trails, I mean, even that would be, you know, huge. So it's, you know, it'd be great to, you know, just do it all at once. Yeah, I think starting around the center would be best.
I think this has a really strong, it feels like a study as much as like a design project, so it gives it a strong scholarly feel. It feels kind of like a master's thesis. And I think you could present this at a lot of conferences. I mean, people would find this interesting.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I think that your attention to detail all the way through, looking at the big picture, but also the detail is a good balance there, and I think it's interesting. And I think a lot of people could benefit from hearing it, so I'd encourage you to consider that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jack, having followed this project for a couple of years now in your studies with Professor Harding, I would encourage you to create one more board and put the other information that you gathered from that. Just, well, maybe you can talk about it, but the
Just
number
like
of,
leading up to this stuff?
yeah, leading the
Yeah.
demographics, you know, the number of warm days or non-rainy days versus, you know, Seattle or Portland, because that kind of sets the precedent of how big this could be. If you remember from Professor Harding's class, I mean, you guys looked at connecting to Amtrak, so that, you know, all of a sudden connected Atlanta to Clemson,
Mhm.
to Greenville,
Yeah.
to Charlotte,
Yeah.
which is another layer of information I think is critical.
Yeah. This way.
I think what really sets this project off is all the analysis stuff that you did at the beginning, because that shows how much you put into it, in the sense that, you know, you didn't just pick these places arbitrarily. These are places that people spoke and said this is what they wanted, this is the places they needed to go, and from that you were able to, you know, really create something that works, that people are interested in using.
I think you also, you did, as far as Exit Studio goes, you picked a project you were extremely passionate about. Compared to the rest of us, we take projects that we were passionate about, but yours, you can just see it immediately, and we all knew it the whole entire time. So that adds so much more to your project.
We heard it.
So,
Jack, you've edited as well from where we started, I think. Doing the room portion of this, let's move forward. I appreciate you doing that. I think, obviously, both the comments that it's turned out quite nicely. What would be your next step if you were to develop this further?
You know, I think,
Implementation, but
right.
What's lacking here?
I think, you know, what would be, you know, the next step hopefully is, you know, looking at, you know, existing codes and policies and stuff in Clemson and seeing, you know, kind of where there are deficiencies and gaps that can be improved upon.
Jack, what if there was no parking on campus?
Well, it'd be like a living.
What are you saying? Like, where would they park, or?
Yeah, where was the park?
You have to ride your bike.
We met with.
Everybody riding their bike.
I met with Chief Moody earlier this semester, and we talked about that and moving some of this parking that's on campus, especially, you know, for freshmen and stuff, to, you know, satellite underused lots off campus, and having people, busing into campus. And that's kind of, the idea of these parking lot stations too, is, for people who are driving, if they don't wanna buy either pass, and struggle with parking on campus, they can park the parking garage and ride the bus in, or ride a bike.
That's so. They're doing this, I think you could make the case better for Clemson, you can add those case studies to your list.
Okay.
Not treating Clemson.
Yeah.
Another way to look at this is that if you park a car here and you buy a permit, part of that money will be given to people who ride bikes. And so you have an incentive that's building, you have to have a lot of incentive programs to really make these things happen together. That's the right question. And these are, and this is part of the creativity of this. This is part of really making this happen, and that, that's is considered. So that again is, kind of the following step, that's you have some beginning work that you might have,